Okay, this is for voice at 200 plus, and this is an accident reconstruction case, so probably kind of tough. We're going to leave this in 15s to begin with. I am plaintiff counsel, Mr. Peters.
I'm the witness.
I'm the court.
I'm attorney for defense, Mr. McAllister.
Okay, starting with a question by Mr. Peters, line 11. Set our watches on line 13. This will be at 200. On the record, take your seat. What did you do when you came up on the accident?
When I drove up on the accident, ambulance and fire was already there, and the fire department had already told us that the paramedics had already pronounced 2 people in the pickup that is drawn on the north side of the road that were actually non-resuscitating, and that he recommended that we contact the SO and go out there and make the pronouncement of death that they were dead.
SO meaning sheriff's office, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, what did you do after that?
Then I went up to the pickup to look at the 2 bodies, and at that time, I think the rescue team had already started tearing up the top of the pickup to remove the bodies from the pickup, and were lying them down on the north side of the pickup.
And was it your primary duty at that time to do an investigation as to how the accident occurred?
Yes.
And did you make any contact with Steve Smith during that investigation?
By the time I got there, Steve Smith had already been transported by ambulance
To where?
to Emmanuel Hospital, I believe.
Did you make contact there at Emmanuel with him?
Yes. After I collected as much information as I could from the scene, then I went and drove down to Emmanuel Hospital.
And what was your purpose for contacting him there?
To get a statement as to what happened, see if I can coincide everyone else's, the witness's statement, and the position of the vehicles and physical evidence that I had found on the road.
And what was your first question that you asked him?
Objection, lack of foundation, lack of corpus.
Sustained.
As to which objection?
Well, on the corpus, do you have proof that he was driving the vehicle?
He made the statement to Mr. Fontana.
Okay, what else are we missing then, Mr. McAllister?
Well, we're missing any kind of,
And I have nothing here to show me that. I'm going to sustain the objection at this point.
Officer Vasquez, when you were at the scene of the accident prior to going to Emmanuel Hospital, what other things did you do with regard to investigation?
I looked over the area and took measurements of the location of the vehicle. And I also noted the certain things like, for example, debris that was in the, I guess it would be the westbound lane. And also, I think it was springs from a vehicle and diesel spill that was on Keys Road.
Were you able, with your investigation, to determine a point of impact of the 2 vehicles?
Yes, I was.
And where did you determine the point of impact to be? Did you put that on the diagram?
While he's doing that, I'm going to go off the record here a minute. Okay, we're back on the record.
Okay, Officer Vasquez, you've drawn approximately 3 items. Prior to doing anything more, officer?
Pardon me?
Prior to doing anything more,
Yes.
you've drawn approximately 3 different items on the diagram, is that correct?
Yes, I did.
And you've labeled them 1, 2, and 3?
That's correct.
This diagram was initially Mr. McAllister's. I assume you have no problem
no, I have no problem.
with the people using it.
It wasn't entered yet.
No, but usually, well, not usually, but sometimes people like to have their own diagrams. Mr. McAllister doesn't care.
Okay, would you please identify the item that you've identified as one with a circle around it and what it is?
Number 1 is glass debris
Where is it?
in the westbound lane,
Where? On the side? In the middle?
in the center of the westbound lane.
We're describing for the record, because the record can't see the diagram, what do you have as 2 with a circle around it?
Hold on. Just for the record, I took measurements from the center of the glass debris. There was approximately a 4-foot diameter of glass and approximately 4 feet south of the north edge of the roadway of Keys Road.
Okay, and what do you have as mark 2 with the circle around it?
As mark 2, I have also another pile of glass debris, which is located pretty similar to the location of number 1.
Do you know how far away from number 1 it was?
Yes, based on my notes here, they were approximately 12 feet apart.
That's in the westbound lane too?
Yes.
And what do you have as number 3 with the circle around it?
Number 3 is some auto parts that appeared to be from V1,
V1 meaning which vehicle?
this vehicle, the pickup.
Okay, and where did you find those?
Well, I'll object to that as calling for speculation.
Sustained.
Move to strike it.
Stricken. So all we have there is were some auto parts found in the westbound lane.
Right, with fresh diesel spills on them. I shouldn't say it's diesel spill, just fluids. Either gas or oil.
And where were they located?
They were located approximately 3 feet north of the north roadway edge.
Where? Let's see.
Here,
Were you able to tell from which vehicle the glass debris, which you've labeled as one, came from?
no, I wasn't.
How about the label number 2?
I was not able to determine
And
anything.
did you make any determination with regards to the auto parts that you've labeled 3?
No, just that all these items I found were freshly placed there because it had been raining and this vehicle was pretty well distorted. I would only guess it was from it, but I wouldn't be able to.
Are you saying that the pieces,
I would move to strike the pieces.
Well, he hasn't testified to that.
Okay,
are you saying that the pieces you found there were dry as opposed to wet, and that's why you determined them to be fresh?
Yes.
Okay, would you please tell us where you determined the point of impact to be?
Okay, I had one other.
All right.
Okay, right about in the same location was also a small puddle of it. Appeared to be diesel fluid, or either it was that or oil and gas mixed together.
So a small puddle of fluid. You don't know what it was?
Yes.
Well, you didn't take any tests to determine that?
No, I didn't.
Where was that located?
That was located approximately the same location as the springs.
The auto parts?
I think this is going to take a little longer than this morning. I do have a felony plea I'd like to take. Do you mind if we start again at 2?
That's fine.
Mr. McAllister?
there's no chance of starting earlier?
I've got the arraignments at 1:30. If Judge Aguilar were free, he could do them.
If that's all we could do, that's all we can do.
Well, you cannot waive your right to a continuous prelim, and arraignments could get delayed, I suppose, and we could start at 1:30 if you want to do that.
Yeah, I might do that.
Can we take 15 more minutes, Your Honor?
Okay, we'll just keep going on this case then.
And what else, if anything, did you find or make note of at the accident scene?
These were the only items I made a note.
Did you make any notation as to point of impact?
Yes, I did.
And where did you determine the point of impact to be?
Can I voir dire on that point?
What, you mean as to his qualifications to render that opinion?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Officer Vasquez, go ahead and have a seat.
You can object to it.
Pardon?
I suppose you could have objected to it initially as no foundation.
Yeah, what's your training in arriving at conclusions such as point of impact?
Okay, we are given approximately 60 hours academy training at the California Highway Patrol Academy. And these 60 hours are conducted of both in the classroom and practical training in assumable accidents in asphalt or roadways. And 40 hours primarily consists of in a class and approximately 20 are practical, sort of on-the-job training. And during this time, we're taught how to document and make note of information that we find at an accident scene, what type of paperwork to fill out in addition to how to take measurements and make a note of them, the document. Also, what we do, we don't have any skids here. We usually determine the speed of the vehicle based upon the type of skid and its length.
There were no skid marks here?
No, there weren't any skid marks.
How long have you been a CHP officer?
3 years.
3 years?
Have you ever been asked in court to testify as an expert to where a point of impact is?
Yes, I have.
How many times?
3 times.
Where?
It was twice in Santa Clara County, Bay Area, and once here in Modesto.
Was it here in Superior or municipal court?
It was in municipal.
And in Santa Clara County, were those in municipal court also?
One of them was in municipal, the other was Superior.
You qualified all 3 times?
Yes, I did.
Just one point of impact, right?
Yes, well, a combination of everything that went on.
Well, you didn't testify as to how the accident was caused, did you?
No, just my opinion, and if,
Accident reconstruction, you didn't testify on that subject?
no.
And after the 60 hours of training, have you had any training other than that 60-hour block that you told us of which would prepare you for testifying as a point of impact?
Yes, I went up to the academy for an additional 40 hours. What the academy does is first they give you training on like a summary of accident investigation, and then after a while they send you back in there and they pinpoint certain areas. Like, for example, I went back to the academy for an additional 40 hours just to learn how to determine the speed of a vehicle and its point of rest, actually to where the point of impact took place.
Okay, but that didn't represent to where the point of impact is?
Not in this case, it doesn't.
No other questions?
I'm satisfied he's qualified.
No other questions on voir dire?
In this particular case, how did you determine the point of impact?
Based on the number 2 that I have, the auto glass, the first pile of debris, I determined that that was approximately the approximate location where both vehicles came into contact.
The arrest. Point of impact, I don't suppose you have a brief for that, do you? I figured there had to be one. What is it? P-O-I-K-T. I'm going to put that on here. P
I would do point,
O
P-O-I-N.
I K T, point of impact. Great one. We're going to give you some more practice with it.
It's so good.
So good. We'll write it 100 more
I think it was
times.
here.
Okay. Let's pick it up on line 5. Mr. Teeter's question, and we're reading in 14s now, ladies.
Okay.
It's okay.
Okay.
Sorry, that's gonna confuse me.
Here we go. How did you make that determination?
Considering that this was fresh debris, everything else was wet. It had been raining. Both vehicles had come in contact here, and I made the measurements from the north roadway edge and from the first or the closest cross street, which was Moffett Road on the west side of the location. I took measurements and determined that that was the point of impact.
Okay, when you say point of impact, you're pointing to what you've put on the diagram with a 2 and circled it with what you've labeled as glass debris?
Yes, yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
And that was in which lane?
That was in the westbound lane.
And after determining the point of impact, did you have an opinion as to whether or not there were any violations of law?
Yes, considering that most of the physical evidence, the 2 piles of glass debris, the fresh fluid, and the auto parts, I determined that the vehicle was traveling eastbound. The truck tractor had to have crossed into the westbound lane and made the impact in the westbound lane,
And would that have been a violation of law?
crossing into the opposing lane.
Do you have a specific vehicle code section?
Yes, there is.
I want you to understand that my ruling on accepting him as an expert was as to the point of impact.
I'd object to this as beyond the foundation that was laid and move to strike it.
I want you to understand that. I mean, how can he render an opinion as to how the accident happened, which is what he's just telling us, that the car had just crossed the lane. He wasn't there. He can't cite anybody for that. You need a witness to do that, don't you? Or an accident reconstruction expert. He's not qualified for that.
If his experience,
I didn't want to mislead Mr. McAllister of the opinion that that's what I was doing, because all I'm saying is he's qualified to say where the point of impact is. It's a far different thing than how the accident happened, is what you're saying, him citing somebody for a particular violation. Just like any case, you can't cite somebody based on, for example, on an infraction, you can't cite somebody if you weren't there at the scene, right?
but if there's physical evidence around, you may not be able to legally cite or bring them to court, but you can determine whether an unlawful act has happened.
But it isn't that reconstructing the accident?
Up to the point that his expertise allows him to. An expert is just something over a lay person.
Maybe he would qualify as to,
If I even looked at a point of impact and it's on one side of the road and not the other, then if it's a point of impact, you have to say it's there and that's where they came together.
not necessarily. You could say that somebody else was there and he had to avoid him.
But the point of impact is where 2 vehicles come together.
Yeah, but one vehicle could have been in their lane and he could have had to swerve to avoid him and then come back over into the other lane. You need an accident reconstruction. You need somebody else to do that. He's been a CHP officer for 3 years.
I'm not asking him to tell me.
Yes, you are.
I'm asking him to tell me
He's testified there's a violation of a law.
that one vehicle had to have been in that lane to cause the accident where the point of impact is.
You're asking him to tell you where the accident occurred and why the impact occurred and that the violation of law occurred. 2 vehicles were in that lane when we had the point of impact, or we wouldn't have that there.
Right.
What you're getting into now was the violation of law that was violated here. He's rendering an opinion as to what violation of law there was. How can he do that?
Because he's got 2 vehicles and a point of impact.
How do you do it in any case? You have officers citing for that. No, you bring in witnesses. You can't prove that.
I'm not asking him to cite him. You can't cite him, right? He can determine whether an unlawful act occurred because he wasn't there. He can't do the citing.
I don't think so. The same reason he can't cite someone for it is the same reason he can't testify to it if he's not an expert, and he's not an expert. Just like a personal injury case, you can't prove how the accident happened unless you have an accident reconstruction expert. I know the Highway Patrol has people who do that, Mr. White, I think his name is, and people who have been there for a long time. If you can qualify him as an accident reconstruction expert, then he can tell us exactly how it happened, I suppose, or at least in his opinion. But you're getting into an opinion, it seems to me that's beyond the scope of this witness's ability to testify. He wasn't there at the time. He can tell us based on his expert enough to tell us where the accident occurred, the point of impact, but how they arrived at the point of impact, it seems to me is beyond the expertise at this point until you qualify him.
I guess I don't see it. If two vehicles impact in one side of the road, he can tell us because any layperson can say then one of the vehicles had to be over the line to hit him.
Obviously.
He doesn't have to tell us that. Pardon me?
But it is something to tell us exactly where the point of impact was. That requires more than a layperson's testimony.
But that's what he's qualified. You've said he can qualify as an expert to do that,
He can tell us where the point of impact was.
which he has done.
Anybody can deduce from that, if that's where the point of impact was, at least two vehicles were over the line, right?
And
Now, the problem is this, that from that, you can't then determine that for some reason the guy in the truck the rig was in violation of law when he was over the line, which is what you have him testifying to. It may be circumstantial evidence from which the court can conclude, at least there's enough evidence for preliminary examination. I don't know. I haven't seen that yet.
I guess I'll have to let it rest because I don't see it.
You have him testifying that the violation of law.
That's what you just said.
No, I just said the point of impact. That's different than the point of impact.
You said in order to get to that point of impact, two vehicles come together, and that means
That's right. That doesn't mean the person was necessarily in violation of the law when he impacted that vehicle. That's why they're over there. That's why they generally, let's just take the simplest case of a fender bender. When you come in on a vehicle citation for driving on the wrong side of the road, the officer can't prove it himself. He wasn't there at the time unless he's an accident reconstruction expert. I'm not even sure that would be enough to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt at trial. They always have witnesses. If they don't have any witnesses, they can't prove the case.
Officer Vasquez, were there any other vehicles that had any damage to them at the accident site?
No, there weren't.
And where was the damage to the pickup?
It was primarily to the front end.
Any particular side?
To the best of my knowledge, I believe it was just all the front end. Yeah, it was all the front end and top.
And with regards to what's been labeled the rig, what was the damage to that vehicle?
It was primarily to the right front
Right front of the cab?
of the tractor.
Truck tractor.
Damage to the right front of the tractor?
Yes,
When you say the truck tractor, are you saying the part where the person's driving the vehicle?
yes.
Wait a minute.
Can you indicate on the diagram with the blackening the area on the truck tractor trailer where the damage was?
Okay,
So it would be on the passenger side?
yes, primarily.
So it's the right side of the truck tractor as you're sitting in the tractor?
Right.
If you're the driver, it would be on the passenger side.
Correct.
And the damage to the pickup was front end damage?
Yes,
It was smashed up?
yes, it was.
All right. Have you had any training in accident reconstruction?
Yes, but I'm not considered an expert in the area.
Have you experienced,
But I have constructed many accidents and just formed an opinion.
formed an opinion?
Yes,
But don't you have it within the Highway Patrol accident reconstruction experts?
yes, we do.
How come one of those isn't called to the scene here?
I don't know.
Isn't that done?
It usually is, yes.
Did you radio for somebody to come and help you?
Well, sergeants were out there or dispatch was aware. No,
You work for the Merced office or
Modesto office.
Modesto office?
Yeah, I have no idea why an expert didn't go out there.
But there is an accident reconstruction expert in the office?
Yes, we do have a mate team that does that.
They have special training in accident reconstruction?
Correct.
Taking the point of impact, the position of the vehicles, the damage, skid marks, all of that. From that, they can render an opinion as to how the accident happened, right?
Right.
Have no further questions.
I have no questions.
You may step down. Thank you.
People have no further witnesses. The people will rest.
Mr. McAllister?
We have no witnesses.
Okay, you want to say anything, Ms. Peters?
Is this in evidence?
We'll move the diagram in evidence.
Sure.
No one has any objection. I was looking at one thing that occurred to me.
Can you leave that there for a minute, Cliff, please? Can you leave that there for a minute? Thank you. Okay, this is 3 minutes of warm-up for take. We'll probably do it twice. I am Mr. Lowe for the plaintiff.
I'm the witness.
I am the court.
I'm Mr. Schultz for defense.
The court begins. Let's read it in 14s.
Okay. And it's the court for the record. Okay, let's go on the record. People versus Moses, the defendant present with counsel. The people are present. Are we ready to resume, gentlemen?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Moses, take the stand, please. Okay, you've been previously sworn. You're reminded you're still under oath. Mr. Lowe, you may resume your cross-examination.
Thank you. Mr. Moses, how are you feeling today?
Okay,
Okay?
okay.
Again, I'll have to remind you to speak into the microphone so everybody can hear you all right. I think yesterday we left off, we were trying to determine how many times you remember hitting your wife. We went over people's 11, we went over people's 12, and do we both agree that it looks like it's at least twice that you hit her with a bat?
Whether Mr. Moses agrees with the prosecutor is irrelevant.
That's sustained.
Mr. Moses?
Seems to.
Does it seem to you at least that you hit her twice with the bat?
It seems that way.
Object to what it seems like, Your Honor. Irrelevant as well.
It is speculation on his part. It is somewhat argumentative also.
All right, Mr. Moses, do either of those photographs refresh your memory as to how many times you might have hit her with that bat?
No, they don't.
They don't? Okay, well, let's keep trying, okay? What do you say we take a look at people's number 13? What's that a photograph of? Do you recognize it?
It's a leg.
Whose leg?
Laura's.
What do you see in that photograph?
Bruise.
Bruise? Do you agree? It's a bruise.
Yes.
In fact, I think you can see bruising not only on that leg, but it goes all the way over. You can see bruising on the other leg as well, right?
Right.
And that bruising wasn't there before you got there, right?
No.
That's bruising you inflicted in your attack, is that right?
Yes.
Does that help you refresh your memory at all as to how many times you have hit her with the bat?
I wasn't counting when I was hitting her. I don't know.
Well, do you know or have an estimation for us yet?
I do not.
Okay, we'll keep trying. Showing you people's 14.
I'm going to object on the grounds it's asked and answered.
I haven't asked a question yet.
Well, the witness,
Excuse me, let's hear the next question.
People's 14, do you recognize that?
Yes.
Does that help refresh your recollection as to how many times you might have hit her with that bat?
okay, that's my objection.
Overruled.
Okay, well, he has his answer that he doesn't remember.
Excuse me, he's trying to refresh his recollection. Can you do that?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Understand, though, you have asked to try to get the proceedings concluded today?
I understand that, Judge, and I think I'll be relatively brief
All right.
as to what the court might expect. It doesn't help at all.
No.
I
said I don't remember as to how many times.
asked you yesterday if you remember the first blow being to her head. You've had a day to think about it. Have you changed that opinion at all?
I'm not sure.
Objection, that's to his opinion.
Overruled. Said he's not sure.
Mr. Moses, you were pretty out of control when you were swinging that bat, weren't you?
The way it seems, yes. It seemed like that.
I mean, you were just swinging that thing blindly, but directed purely at her, right?
Objection to a compound question.
Sustain.
Stop. This is going to be a fun one. Okay, let's go back. We're going to do it one more time in 14s again. Kind of makes you sick to your stomach, huh?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. The court. Back to the first page.
It's the court for the record. Okay, let's go on the record. People versus Moses, the defendant present with counsel. The people are present. Are we ready to resume, gentlemen?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Moses, take the witness stand. Okay, you've been previously sworn. You're reminded you're still under oath. Mr. Lowe, you may resume your cross-examination.
Thank you. Mr. Moses, how are you feeling today?
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Again, I'll have to remind you to speak into the microphone so everybody can hear you all right. I think yesterday we left off, we were trying to determine how many times you remember hitting your wife. We went over people's 11, we went over people's 12, and do we both agree that it looks like it's at least twice that you hit her with a bat?
Whether Mr. Moses agrees with the prosecutor is irrelevant.
That's sustained.
Mr. Moses, does it seem to you at least that you hit her twice with the bat?
It seems that way.
Object to what it seems like, Your Honor. Irrelevant as well.
It is speculation on his part. It is somewhat argumentative also.
All right, Mr. Moses, do either of these photographs refresh your memory as to how many times you might have hit her with that bat?
No, they don't.
They don't? Okay, well, let's keep trying, okay? What do you say we take a look at people's number 13? What's that a photograph of? Do you recognize it?
It's a leg.
Whose leg?
Laura's.
What do you see in that photograph?
Bruise.
Bruise? Do you agree it's a bruise?
Yes.
In fact, I think you can see bruising not only on that leg, but it goes all the way over. You can see bruising on the other leg as well, right?
Right.
And that bruising wasn't there when you got there, before you got there, right?
No.
That bruising you inflicted in your attack, is that right?
Yes.
Does that help you refresh your memory at all as to how many times you might have hit her with that bat?
I wasn't counting when I was hitting her. I don't know.
Well, do you have an estimation for us yet?
I do not.
Okay, we'll keep trying. Showing you people's 14.
I'm going to object on the grounds it's asked and answered.
I haven't asked a question yet.
Well, the witness,
Excuse me, let's hear the next question.
People's 14, do you recognize that?
Yes.
Does that help refresh your recollection as to how many times you might have hit her with that bat?
okay, that's my objection.
Overruled.
Okay, well, he has his answer that he doesn't remember.
Excuse me, he's trying to refresh his recollection. He can do that.
Uh-huh.
Okay, understand though, you have asked to try to get the proceedings concluded today.
I understand that, Judge, and I think I'll be relatively brief
All right,
as to what the court might expect. It doesn't help at all.
No.
I asked
I don't remember as to how many times.
you yesterday if you remember the first blow being to her head. You've had a day to think about it. Have you changed that opinion at all?
I'm not sure.
Objection, that's to his opinion.
overruled. Said he's not sure.
Mr. Moses, you were pretty out of control when you were swinging that bat, weren't you?
The way it seems, yes, it seemed like that.
I mean, you were just hitting that thing blindly, but directed purely at her, right?
Objection to a compound question.
Sustained. Sorry.
The court all choked up. Okay, I'm going to end this recording because we're going to start taking now.